All right, we are live. This is Jeff Mackey live. I'm Spencer Israel from Stock Market TV. The other guy is Jeff Mackey. Mr. Mackey, how are we doing today?
I'm good. I'm sending a text out to someone who's probably texting me to let me know that I'm on the internet doing it. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
are on the internet. We are live. Jeff, much to discuss here. We are in earnings season. It's very exciting. We're going to talk about Amazon. We're going to talk about Apple. We have a new CEO and one of America's. Are they still one of America's largest retailers? I'm not sure, but
No, not really, but
really.
there's white smoke over the skies of Richfield,
Ah,
Minnesota, which means
yes.
there's a new CEO at Best Buy.
That's right. We'll talk about that. Talk about Netflix from last week. There were some implications from that report. You were all over it for your members. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it and let's set the stage first because one of the things you're looking for when companies come out and give their spiel to investors once a quarter and say how they're doing is you're looking for companies to tell you how healthy their customers are because that really is the ultimate read through into how healthy the consumer is. So we're not quite into the quote unquote retail portion of earnings season yet. But that being said, we have heard from Philip Morris, United Airlines, and Capital One all in the last few days. And they're all saying what the same thing that the consumer is fine. Is that right?
Well, yeah, and this is both surprising and it gives you the context for what we're going to hear next week. You can't just take their word for it, Spencer, and you have to adjust for who the CEOs in question are doing the talking. You have to adjust for really what the consumer environment actually looks like. You know, Abercrombie was the first to come out a few months ago or a couple months ago, kind of right when the kerfuffle began. They took down sales guidance saying that the consumer looks soft. That has since been kind of trumped by everything we've heard, no pun intended. But people are smoking, people are flying, and they're still using their credit card. So consumers still be spending. Now, with that being the case, everyone who comes out over the next couple of weeks, if they're telling you that the consumer is a headwind and everyone's worried about gas prices, I don't necessarily believe that. You know, it's United would be perfectly happy to kind of take the L and say, you know what, demand's going to go down. We have to raise prices. That would make sense. It's not like the stock would get dung particularly hard there. Capital One, they don't really care one way or the other. They're just telling you what their business looks like. So these are companies with no real skin in the game. Some of the companies reporting next week tend to sort of blame the consumer for all kinds of problems. We'll get to that. But in the environment that we're seeing, people should have spent less. According to the opinion polls, they were all not going to spend any money ever again, and that was going to be the end of it. I was worried about gas prices personally. Maybe it's impacting on some of the lower end stuff, but for the most part, again, if people are smoking, flying, and banking, they don't feel that terrible about the economy. And that's going to be the background that maybe takes a little of the cushion that you would get on the consumer names that they might have had otherwise, because it's a perfectly viable excuse. But again, the American consumer, best on earth, said it before. I'm not just kissing their butts. I've got no reason to. We just like to buy stuff, and gas prices be damned.
Yeah, hey, if United Airlines is ever looking for an excuse as to why their business is underperforming, this is it, right? But if their business is not underperforming, then heck, I mean that's a signal.
They're going to
So
tell you,
yeah,
and now everything comes with a caveat, and you can get in wonk or barroom arguments about, more of the plane now, more tickets are being sold in the front end of the plane, which is why you have so
yeah,
much business class for like half and blah, blah, blah. People are using their credit cards more because they're about to run out of money, and smokers are just junkies.
yeah.
So
Smokers are going to smoke, Jeff. I don't know how much
smokers going to smoke. So those are your caveats for this particular group. But again, they don't really, no one's going to ding their stock. No one was going to ding United if they said demand was down, and it's just not. And that
Okay,
tells you something. So when you
all
hear from
right.
Chipotle next week, if they tell you the consumer's down, maybe they're all flying United instead, or maybe your company's just not that good.
All right. Against that backdrop, let's talk about Amazon. They report earnings next Wednesday after the close. You were long the stock via some options from a couple months ago. The trade
Yep.
wasn't going to work for you. Now, obviously, things have changed in the past couple weeks. That trade worked out very well for you. What should we specifically listen for from Amazon next week?
Jazzy has to do a better job of selling their story. When they reported last time, it was particularly bad timing. We were going straight into the war. Everyone hated anyone who was spending on AI. Those two things that made it a tough afternoon for Amazon to come out and kind of say we're going to spend $200 billion on AI, which is what they did. And the stock got absolutely poleaxed. Not much has actually changed except for kind of sentiments, and the war happened and we all decided that's fine. At this point, Iran can kind of say we're totally at war with you, and the stock market's like, liars, you're lying. So, okay, it's the stocks are behaving well. Amazon, my brain says sell. That chart says kind of, holy crap, here we come into old highs. And so you're going to have natural resistance there. I think in a few months, this stock is going to be higher. So I'm trepidatious going into this exact print, but I just think the company I think they're going to end up making a ton of money off all this innovation. They're going to just make the most. They have the cleanest line of sight into who's going to be making money off the AI revolution because of AWS, to be honest. And because of their own operations. They've got a million little drones running around their fulfillment centers. No one touches a product from the time you order it till it gets to your door. That's nice. That's going to be efficient, and eventually that'll pay off. Stock's been milling around for a couple of years now. It's time to move, and I think it happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, if you just zoom out on the Amazon chart, it's gone nowhere for a year. I mean, how often can you say that with Amazon? How often can you say, wow, it's gone nowhere for a year? Yeah.
Well, 25 years ago, you could say it for about a decade. You could say, well, it's gone down 95%. But, they get to be a whipping boy every once in a while. But, I don't think they're getting enough credit here for the amount of cash they can make. What you always have to remember about Amazon is they are probably the best deployers of capital west of Berkshire Hathaway. They just over time, just in terms of building a business. This was a bookstore. So they've earned the right, at least in my mind, to kind of swing big because they get enough home runs that matters for them. They're swinging big on AI. I don't think that all their talent walked out the door when Bezos left. I think he still has enough skin in the game, selling as fast as he can, though he is. He's still involved. He's still involved in a lot of different ventures. They're smart people spending a lot of money on stuff that should pay off. That, we'll see how it plays out.
All right. Well, I know you just put out a fresh Amazon trade to your members. If you want to get that trade, you have to use the link below in the description to actually find out what and how Jeff is playing this Amazon earnings report next week. Let's move on to the other big report. There's lots of big reports in the next couple of days next week. Apple is going to be the big one, especially in light of the CEO change announcement from the other day. What say you? This is kind of the same thing. It's pretty much the same setup and the same narrative and same everything as Amazon, right?
A little bit, it's Apple gets slapped around because they're not spending enough on AI because Siri still sucks and they're just going to be end users of it and they're not deploying enough capital. So, for the first 6 months of the year, kind of if you just included AI in the sentence where it drove stocks higher 2 years ago, for the beginning of this year, it was a murder pit. Apple went the other direction with it. Again, they've been marking time. It's hard to overstate just how much respect among the dorks Tim Cook gets. People who I've got an Australian friend who is not particularly given to overstating things, although, unless you give him a few beers, he's Australian after all. But, he says that he's the best distributor of products in the world. He's the best supply chain guy who's ever lived. That kind of stuff doesn't get thrown around lightly in a world where everyone likes to consider themselves sort of the smartest cat. So they'll miss Tim Cook, but they've got a deep bench at Apple. Even though they've had a lot of departures, I don't think they had to send out a LinkedIn post to find people who wanted to be CEO of Apple. Cook did a great job. We're going to talk more about CEOs who've resigned. He's the closest you get to a giant, a really tremendous non-founder CEO. Hats off to him on the long-term effort that he put in there. I think Apple's going to figure out a way to win. It'll be fine. I'm less excited about them than I am perhaps Amazon, but how excited are you going to get over the biggest company on earth? It's not a little undiscovered gem.
It's kind of the same idea, though. I mean, what are the odds that in a year from now the stock is not higher? I mean, not good. I mean, right? In all likelihood, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, these stocks are higher a year from now. In all likelihood, doesn't mean
I mean that's going to be the odds. And again, right. It's also inevitable that we're going to go down 50% at some point. So stuff can happen, but. Yeah. That's what you call an exogenous threat. It's, a meteor is going to hit the Earth someday.
We just got one of those. We just got one. We're moving on already.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's pivot from tech and hardware to burritos. Chipotle. When are they? Are they on?
That's not a pivot. All three of these companies sell things to people. Come on, okay. It's. An expensive burrito is nothing but an iPhone that you eat. You don't need either one of them, but you like them, or at least you used to.
Chipotle is still people say Chipotle is the Amazon of Mexican food. So, the Apple Mexican food.
They're still adjusting to selling 12 just expensive fattening food in a GLP-1 world. And they haven't figured out how to make that pivot. They blame their consumers. They're cannibalizing their same-store sales. It hasn't been great for them. It wasn't great for them before Brian Niccol left to run Starbucks. It's not great for them now. They're due. That is your best argument for them. And if you believe, Chipotle has been blaming the consumer for not understanding what a great value a 14-pound burrito is for the last 2 years. They need to stop doing that before the stock's going to go higher. We'll see how it goes. It's all going to be about same-store sales with them. They're openly cannibalizing their sales, meaning they're opening stores close to one another, knowing it's going to hurt the business of the existing store with the idea that eventually they'll do better. That's not a great strategy. If a concept is kind of broken, don't do more of them until you figure out why. That's the way I would do it anyway. That's the way I invest. So watch the same store sales there. If they come out, they blame the consumer, you can call BS on them and say, why would people smoke cigarettes and not eat your ridiculously huge slop bowls? Serve smaller portions for less money and figure it out, Chipotle.
All right. Harsh words.
I know. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm being nice. It's tough love is what that is. Yeah. Spencer, that's what tough love looks like. I'm not always nice to my kids, but they love me.
All right. Speaking of tough love, or just tough in general, things have been quite tough. They have not been great for Best Buy the past few years. The CEO announced this morning he is stepping down.
It's a she. And I give respect where it's due. Corey Barry was a very good CEO, and a very good CEO selling television sets and computers in a world where that's not a particularly glamorous business. Remember, they had to pivot from the COVID kind of shutdown of everything to a period where people would just kind of routinely loot Best Buy stores. And that was just something folks would do. That was a problem. That was a headache for them. Corey figured out a lot of different ways that they could address that. And they thanked her by walking her out the door. I'm not sure it's a quick fix. I was getting DMs and texts this morning. That's why I wanted to bring them up. No one really talks about Best Buy anymore. Down 6% today on Corey leaving because Corey really wasn't the problem. This is one of those, it was easier to fire her than it was the entire company type of operations. They hired internally. People were comparing it to Target, which also went down initially when they fired people, and they hired from the inside after the last CEO left. This is not one of those stories. There's not a ton of low-hanging fruit for the new Best Buy CEO to go in. Target, just clean your stores and run a tighter ship and stop being so freaking woke. That was worth about 30% alone for Target. Best Buy doesn't have those options. Corey was a really good CEO, so hopefully she'll find work, and I trust she will.
So what's the play here for Best Buy? Like, what do they do?
Start selling clothing. I'm not really sure, actually. Honestly, it's tough. The chip thing is tough. The fact that televisions are largely disposable. Truthfully, they're again a pretty good company. I stopped by. We've got a local Best Buy, and I prefer buying my electronics there just because I kind of think Target should get out of the business entirely. Remember, 5 years ago there was no distinguishing your Best Buy from kind of the Costco TV buying experience and your Walmart TV buying experience. Nowadays, I think there's a space in the world for what Best Buy does, but think of the amount of devices and stuff that's gone away. When's the last time you bought a printer? How's your fax machine working?
I don't know. I bought a printer like a year ago, actually.
Did you? Well, there you go. So
Yeah.
bad example. Congratulations on your printer. I'll come over if I have to print something. A lot of the people have gone digital. We can talk about some printer alternatives for you, but it's you're not going to go back there for ink very often. You're not going to go back there for a lot of stuff. The parade's gone by a little bit. They're a good company. They're cheap for a reason. I kind of have wanted to like them, but again, of all the problems they have, Corey was not any of them.
Yeah, with Best Buy, I have one around the corner for me, and I'm probably there every, I don't know, maybe once a quarter or so, and it's 50-50 whether or not I'm actually going to buy something or just use it for some research and then go home and go online and buy it on Amazon. You know what I mean? So, plus they don't always have what I'm even looking for. So
it's super tough to compete against everything, and they're a good physical box electronics store that it would have to be infinity big to hold all the available options for your television set. And so that's a tough world to exist in. There is no buyer good enough to kind of anticipate anything that you could possibly want.
All right. So sometimes when a CEO change is made, Wall Street buys the stock. Sometimes they sell the stock. And that is what happened last week with Netflix when they reported earnings. They also said, hey, by the way, one of our founders, Reed Hastings, and our co-CEO is stepping down, and Ted Sarandos is now going to be just the sole CEO. Netflix is down about 13% since this was announced on Thursday of last week. What is your take on this?
Buy them for sure. It's my trade on them before was long Netflix calls way out. So next January is where we were. We also had some short-term calls that I was short. We chose to hold on to those. They're going to go out worthless just because that chart, there wasn't a lot they were going to say. That was up from 90 to 110 on just the kind of Warner Brothers news and no one being long Netflix. I still maintain people are going to want to be long Netflix. Reed was great, but he's not doing a ton of stuff day to day. I think he left just because if they were going to do the Warner Brothers acquisition, it would have been great for him to be there. Cultural reasons, blah, blah, blah. Without that, Netflix is a factory, man. They know how to make plenty of content that people are going to watch. There's plenty of opportunity for streaming. Anyone who's tried to use the ESPN app, conglomerate consortium, to watch anything realizes that just coming up with a simple single pricing model of streaming stuff is a huge opportunity because everyone else just seems determined to be idiots. So, Godspeed Netflix. It's time to buy. I love it coming on that. It's coming on that 50-day support. They've been punished enough. We'll all misread, buy the stock.
Netflix is, low key one of the most volatile stocks out there. Obviously, they had that 10-for-1 split in November, but if you just look at the long-term chart, split adjusted, the stock went from 60 to 18 to 130, and it all in the span of like 3 years, right? 4 years.
And never cheap, never really has been cheap, never has gotten, but it gets poleaxed every once in a while. The truth is the competition is always looming. It's always out there. And in some cases getting much better. Amazon Prime went from 2-day shipping to a really good video service. Again, they're excellent at deploying capital, but there's room in this world for both. So it's Netflix just gets eyeballs. They get butts in the seat, and they're very good at it. And there's space in the world for them. And finally, it's a huge week. It's a huge week.
Yeah, a lot of consumer names reporting next week. We just named a couple, but you're going to hear from Domino's. You're going to hear from Meta. Visa's very important. One, it is one of the largest companies in the world. Two, they obviously have a tremendous read through on the consumer. UPS, same story. Tremendous read through on the state of shipping and business and consumer activity on that front. I don't know how much we're going to learn from Spotify and Coke, Jeff. Those are both pretty sticky products there. People,
I think you'll learn a lot from Spotify, and it's always fun to listen to Swedish people talk. So there's that. Wayfair, run by just one of the most cutthroat guys on planet Earth. I think he laid off like half the company about 2 days before Christmas a few years ago.
Jeez.
Tough dude. But that stock is low key and tremendously volatile and has been kind of in fuego. Doesn't get a lot of press. They're selling furniture. That seems like a tough business, but you know what? They do a good job at it, and they control cost because they're run by a very mean person. Bed Bath and Beyond, from beyond the grave, unkillable. They will bury us all. There will be a 20% off Bed Bath and Beyond coupon probably on all of our graves at one point.
I still get emails because I have some amount of an online coupon or an online credit that I never bothered to redeem, and they email me about every few months. Say, hey, you have a credit, and I'm like, I'm not gonna bother.
Not gonna do that. Not gonna do that. No, it's really bad. The aftermarket for the 20% off coupons are not that good. All right, my man. That's what we got. It's an exciting. I'm poised.
One quick question from the chat. Thoughts on Aritzia? I know this is a Jeff favorite, or has been a Jeff favorite in the past.
And it's a Jeff favorite in the present. It's a Jeff favorite right now. Huge comeback. It's going to go with the market in general. Incredibly high beta stock. Still super hot. Still a ton of runway. Hasn't broken yet. I'll let you know when I feel like it has. But
all right.
I'm still long. It's pushing to brand new all-time highs, which it didn't look like it was going to be the case a month ago. So they're the class of Canada. And I say that having watched a lot of NHL playoff hockey. I think if anyone in Canada is going to win the Stanley Cup this year, it's going to be Aritzia.
Might be Aritzia. All right. If you want to find out what stocks Jeff actually owns in his portfolio and what new options trades he's making every single week, you have to use the link in the description below. Join the Mackey portfolio and get his alerts when he makes new trades. Find out what he's buying, what he's selling. Every week you get a new video discussing the portfolio, the strategy, the allocations, all that jazz. So it's all in there. Use the link below on YouTube. Jeff Mackey, always a pleasure, sir. We'll be back next week with Mackey and a special surprise guest. We're not going to say who yet.
We don't have to.
It's going to be
surprising. I know a lot of people. Talk to you guys next week.